Good evening. Good evening. I want to welcome everybody to our seventh annual uh, Blacks and Wax production and our third one at the Kennedy Center. Well, let me use the terms they used. The renowned Blacks and Wax performing at the Kennedy Center. So give them a hand. I want to thank you so much for coming, and it's just a little awe-inspired for me because we just had a show on the 15th at the Southeast Tennyson Learning Center. We had over 1,000 people that showed up. So I'm just wondering where all the rest of these people came from. But I'm glad to have you. I want to please thank all of our sponsors. I see some of them sitting in the audience, and I'm not going to make the mistake I made last year of naming a couple, so you know who you are. Thank you so much for your support. Hope to see you next year bigger and better. I'd like to thank all of the parents who have supported the children. I would like to thank all of our volunteers. And most importantly, I'd like to thank the staff of the Southeast Tennyson Learning Center who have worked. Our director is Ms. Sheba Haley, and I think all of you know her and love her. She's done a great job. And our writer. But the person that I revere in my heart, and I'm going to speak without choking up, that happens for the first time not to be here because it was a conflict that just could not be avoided, is my dear friend, and many of our dear friends in the audience, Mr. Reginald Van Lee. Mr. Reginald Van Lee is the executive producer of the Blacks and Wax program, but he's also the chair of the Washington Performing Arts Society, and he is the one who got us to the Kennedy Center. And it was his brainchild to put together his two favorite youth programs, the Southeast Tennyson Learning Center Blacks and Wax production and the Washington Performing Arts Children of the Gospel Choir. Now, if you've ever seen the Children of the Gospel Choir, then you know what I'm talking about. So I'm seeing our Congresswoman just came in, Congressman Eleanor Holmes Norton. Glad to see you. So sit back and relax. I'm not going to do what I did on the 15th. I'm not going to be the typical average grandparent and say my first granddaughter Zora is in the audience. I'm not going to do that, okay? But I want you to enjoy Struggle to Serve. It was inspired by the fact that the vote was very important in our lives, and we struggled for the vote. And the history of that will be shown here. But what people really don't think about is that the result of the vote was not just us being able to exercise our right, but would also choose people who would advocate for the justice and all of the things that are important to not only all Americans, but African Americans in particular. And those people were elected. Some of them were selected and appointed. And we just want to give a little time to give them homage. And to also say, when you serve your country, it's not always military. You don't really understand the sacrifices people make when they go to those offices every day. You benefit from them, but you really don't understand how important it is in our lives. We hope when this is over, we'll give you a little information on how that happened. So I hope you are not only just entertained, but I certainly pray that you are also educated. Thank you very much.
It may be asked, why do you want it? Some men have got along very well without it. Women have not this right. Shall we justify one wrong by another? This is a sufficient answer. Shall we, at this moment, justify the deprivation of the Negro of the right to vote because someone else is deprived of that privilege? I hold that women, as well as men, have the right to vote. And my heart and voice go with the movement to extend suffrage to women. But that question rests upon another basis than which our rights rest. We may be asked, I say, why we want it. I will tell you why we want it. We want it because it is our right. First of all, I am Frederick Douglass, born a slave in February of 1818, not too far from here, just down the road on the eastern shore of Maryland. I escaped slavery in 1838, impersonating a sailor and making my way at just 20 years old to New Bedford, Massachusetts. My wife, Anna Murray, and I raised our family there. But I had an aching in my soul, and as a true abolitionist, I began to speak, write, and fight for the freedom of all slaves, for our rights as human beings, for our right to vote, both the Negro man and woman alike. Negro. I know. I guess you don't call yourselves Negro anymore anyway. But I can just imagine maybe one day, just one day, when we get the chance to vote. Who knows how far we can go?
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God. There is something to be said about the Constitution, about our government, and how its laws protect us as U.S. citizens. Yes, I was born in Hawaii, our 50th state, and I just took the oath of office on the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. That was his very Bible, and what a proud moment this has been for me. The right to vote cannot be taken for granted. It is our right to vote that has given me the opportunity to serve you again. There are so many African American people we have to be grateful for, who have been both elected and selected to serve this country. Men and women who have devoted their lives to helping the old, educating the young, and encouraging all people to vote, because it is now your right. We have to salute women like Sojourner Truth, Ida B. Wells, and other women in the suffrage movement, including the founders of Delta Sigma Theta, who marched down the streets of Pennsylvania Avenue to fight for their right to vote. There are so many women who never ever gave up.
Voting is one major key to freedom. To be counted, we must be heard, because we who believe in freedom cannot rest. I, Ella Baker, knew I was destined to fight for human and civil rights, especially for women, until I died. My work with the NAACP from 1940 to 1946 was the beginning of my involvement in the movement for justice. I then went on to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference with Dr. King, and working around all those men taught me something. Sisters, we have to stand up for ourselves and help our brothers keep things together. But my passion was working and guiding the young folks. They called me Fundi, the Swahili name meaning one who passes down the craft. I passed down the craft of fighting with dignity for the struggle. On February 1st, 1960, a group of young black college students from North Carolina's A&T University, along with a few female students from Bennett College for Women, refused to leave a Woolworth's counter after being denied service. Right there, I knew I had to help. So I left the SCLC right after those sit-ins. I organized a meeting at Shaw University, my alma mater, for the student leaders of the sit-ins. And from that meeting, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, was born. In 1961, SNCC joined with the Congress of Racial Equality, they were known as CORE, to help create the 1961 Freedom Rides. And in 1964, SNCC helped create Freedom Summer, which focused national attention on Mississippi's racism and helped register hundreds of black voters. I know voting is the key to empowerment for our people.
The Reconstruction Amendments were the amendments that changed this nation. The 13th Amendment, passed in 1865, declared involuntary slavery unconstitutional. The 14th Amendment, passed in 1868, declared equal protection under the law for all citizens of the United States. And the 15th Amendment, passed in 1870, gave Negro people the right to vote. But it took a long time and much more work and sacrifice before Negroes across the country were able to use that right. And women? That took so much longer. And it didn't come until the passing of the 19th Amendment in 1920. Reconstruction saw the election of colored men all over the country, from mayors to congressmen, emerging from the Republican Party of President Abraham Lincoln, the Emancipation Party. They were people like Pierre Calise Landry, W.B. Scott, Edward Duplex, Hiram Revels, Blanche Bruce, P.B.S. Pinchback. Quite a name, isn't it? Well, his mother, Eliza Stewart, was a former slave, and his father, William Pinchback, a successful Virginia planter, was his mother's former master. Pinchback grew up to be the first person of African descent to serve as governor of any state, Louisiana. Or Robert Smalls. He was in the struggle too. The son of a protected house servant who bought his freedom after becoming the first Negro hero of the Civil War. He became a leader in the Negro community of Beaufort, South Carolina, and was elected for 5 terms in the U.S. Congress, serving the Republican Party, and even Joseph Rainey.
I tell you that the Negro will never rest until he gets his rights. We act for civil rights because we know it is proper, not because we want to deprive any other class of the rights and immunities they enjoy, but because they were given to us by the law of the land. I am Joseph Rainey, and that is what I said on the House floor while serving as the first Negro in the U.S. House of Representatives, the first Negro to preside over the House, and the longest-serving Negro during the tumultuous Reconstruction period. I was born into slavery on June 21st, 1832, to Grace and Edward L. Rainey in Georgetown, South Carolina. My father, who was a barber, bought our freedom in the early 1840s, and we later moved to Charleston, South Carolina. When the Civil War broke out in 1861, I was called into service by the Confederate Army. My wife and I later escaped to Bermuda before returning to South Carolina in 1866 after the Union victory. I was looked upon as a leader because the wealth I had acquired in Bermuda. I became active in the Republican Party and became Republican County Chairman of Georgetown. My service continued when I was elected to my first public office in 1870, when I won a seat in the state Senate and became Chairman of the Finance Committee. I was joined by the second Negro member, Representative Jefferson Long of Georgia, and then because of my moderate policies, I got the approval of both Negro and white voters, and I was elected without opposition to the 43rd Congress, 1873 to 1875, and for a full term in the 42nd Congress, 1873 to 1875. There were plenty of struggles during this time. My work with the Committee on Freedmen's Affairs, created in 1865 to undo all legislation concerning newly freed slaves, made me a direct target for the Ku Klux Klan. But I carried on, because we're earnest in our nation's government. We are earnest in the house of our nation's perils and dangers. We are earnest for our rights. We fought and won the struggle to serve.
The 1920s witnessed a black migration to Harlem. And as I was finding my awareness as a Negro woman, many others were being prepared to enter the government to fight for human rights within the system, not only for the Negro, but for all the people in their communities. But the civil rights movement continued, and our new leaders had to fight in Congress and in the streets for our rights. We couldn't turn back now. I remember well one outstanding voice, a young man who didn't look very much like a colored man, but who was as proud a Negro as I had ever seen. Adam Clayton Powell Jr., a bold activist who left his mark during his 12 terms in the House of Representatives from 1945 to 1971. Now, he was a voice to be reckoned with.
Keep the faith, baby. Spread it gently and walk together, children.
Man, I must have said this many times when I addressed my constituents because it was by faith we have come this far and stood together to have our voices heard loud and clear. I was born in New Haven, Connecticut, November 29th, 1908, where my parents moved my oldest sister and me to New York, where my father, a Baptist preacher, Adam Clayton Powell Sr., was assigned as a minister at the 100-year-old Abyssinia Baptist Church down in Midtown Manhattan. In the early 1920s, we moved to Harlem, the church now under the leadership of my father, and the family, definitely under the leadership of my father, during the Black migration to Harlem. Man, I went to school all over New York, City College, Colgate College, and Columbia University, where I received a degree in ministry, which pleased my father very much. My position as assistant minister at Abyssinia helped me press for change in our Black community. The church was an important part of the community, and community. Yeah, it was real. Woman. Strong Black woman.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, take care of TCP. Ooh, what you want, ooh, baby, I got it. Ooh, what you need, ooh, you know I got it. Ooh, all I'm asking, ooh, is for a little respect when you get home. Just a little bit. Hey, baby, just a little when bit. You get home. Just a little bit. Mister, just a little bit. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Take care of TCB.
Suck it to me, suck it to me, suck it to me, suck it to me. Just a little bit.
When you get home,
Just a little bit.
respect.
Just a little bit.
When you get home,
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
when you get home,
Just a little bit.
respect.
Just a little bit.
When you get home,
Just a little bit.
respect. When you get home.
Respect. That is what we demand. I am C. Dolores Tucker, and I was born to ruffle a few feathers. I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1927 as the first African-American female Secretary of State in the nation, serving the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania from 1971 to 1977. I worked relentlessly on behalf of historically oppressed minorities and women. One of the most important things I did as Secretary of State was to lead the effort to make Pennsylvania one of the first states to develop voter registration by mail and reduce the voting age from 21 to 18. Plus, I established laws that will permit students to register and vote from their own college districts. Now that has made an impact on voting all over the country. And I wasn't the only woman making state policy. My friend and colleague Hannah Diggs Atkins was the first African-American woman to hold the position as Secretary of State in Oklahoma. As the convening founder of the National Political Congress of Black Women, I am proud to succeed Shirley Chisholm as the national chair. My goal was to always encourage young women to participate in the political process as voters, candidates, policymakers, and even fundraisers. That is why the battle for Sojourner Truth to put her statue in the U.S. Capitol was my last great cause. I didn't want children to come to the Capitol and not be told the truth, that African-American women were very much involved in the struggle for women's voting rights. She had to be among the women who were being honored. It was only right.
I grew up in the ghetto of Houston, Texas, attended segregated schools, and graduated magna cum laude from the all-black Texas Southern University. I went on to law school, and after graduation, I opened my firm right out of my parents' home. I am Barbara Charlene Jordan, and I'd say I didn't do so bad for a little black girl from the South, born February 21st, 1936. My interest in politics and my career in politics grew slowly but surely. In 1966, after several tries, I finally won a seat on the Texas Senate, becoming the first black woman elected to Congress from the state of Texas. I received extensive support from my mentor and friend, President Lyndon Johnson, who also helped me secure a position on the House Judiciary Committee, which is where I heard the impeachment proceedings against President Richard Nixon and the Watergate scandal. At these hearings, I stood as a moral compass, calling for the impeachment of President Richard Nixon for his involvement in that illegal political enterprise. I said in my speech at the nationally televised hearing, I am not going to sit here and be an idle spectator to the diminution, the subversion, and the destruction of the Constitution. I always said the imperative is to find out what is right and do it.
Not have taxation without representation. We got Congress folks up there with power and vote. Well, if you feel like me.
Taxation without representation. It's tyranny. It always has been and it always will be. It just isn't fair to the citizens of the District of Columbia. I was elected in 1990 as a Democratic delegate to the House of Representatives for the District of Columbia, following in the footsteps of Walter Fauntroy, who served as a delegate from 1971 to 1991. I'm a third-generation Washingtonian.
A tenured law professor at Georgetown University, my roots are deep in the city. However, I earned my law degree and master's degree in American Studies simultaneously from Yale University. I am proud to be the first woman to represent D.C., but I am not proud that we still don't have the right to take part in legislative floor votes. Congress has the final say in our laws, in how we spend our money, and how we organize our government. We must have the right to vote to determine our destiny. D.C. statehood now.
The first black woman elected to the United States Senate. Can you believe it? It was a hard-fought battle against the Democratic incumbent and the Republican opponent. But the people were ready for a change, a new face, and I, Kara Mosley Braun, went to the Senate. As Senator from Chicago, I tackled many issues, including women's rights and civil rights. I served on several committees, including the powerful Senate Finance Committee, and most importantly, I continue to support educational reforms and call for more restrictive gun control laws.
With 12 sisters and brothers, you have to be strong and fearless and resourceful too. I am proud to have a reputation as a fearless and outspoken advocate for women, children, people of color, and the poor. I was just elected in November 2012 to my 12th term to the House of Representatives. And so I continue to serve my people in the 43rd District of California, representing a large part of South Central Los Angeles, which includes Watts. I am the mighty Maxine Waters. I am a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and member and past chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. I am proud to say I have served on the Democratic National Committee since 1980. This has been my life's work, and I am grateful to those who came before me, paved the way for women, for African American women.
I stand directly on the back of the Progressive Black House of Representatives before me. I began my political career as an intern in the office of my predecessor, former Congressman and former Oakland Mayor Ron Dellums. I eventually became his chief of staff. But before being elected to Congress, I served in the California State Assembly and in the California State Senate. I was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives on April 7, 1998, with 67% of votes representing the 9th Congressional District, one of the most progressive districts in the nation, which also includes Oakland and Berkeley. It is great to know I'm the first woman to represent the 9th Congressional District, and I hope to encourage those following in my footsteps. It takes courage and compassion to serve the people. I, Barbara Lee, am the only congressional person who voted against authorization to use military force in Afghanistan. I stood on my principles even as a woman. You can't back down.
To be young, gifted, and black. Oh, what a loving, precious dream. To be young, gifted, and black. Open your heart to what I mean. In the whole world, you know, there's a million boys and girls who are young, gifted, and black, and that's a fact. To be young, gifted, and black, oh, how the truth. There are times when I look back and I am blinded by my youth. Oh, but my joy of today is that we can all be proud and say to be young, gifted, and black. It's where it's at. It's where it's at. It's where it's at.
There are so many gifted and dedicated scholars ready to take on the responsibilities of advocating for the people of this nation. My job is made a lot easier by the help of my cabinet and my staff, a team of people who are by my side to help make decisions and help organize the office of the president. The hours are long and the work is plenty, but believe me, without the help of my cabinet and my staff, this job would be even more complex. There have been some great African American firsts in the presidential cabinets and staffs, even long before I became president. But as president, I did appoint the first African American U.S. Attorney General, Eric Holder. And of course, there are men and women like Robert Weaver, the first African American U.S. Cabinet appointee to Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, or Patricia Harris.
The first African-American woman to hold a cabinet position, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, appointed by President Jimmy Carter in 1977. The first African-American woman to serve as an ambassador, the Ambassador of Luxembourg. And the first African-American woman to head a law school as Dean of Howard University's School of Law. Those accomplishments have made me proud to be an African-American woman. During my confirmation hearings for Secretary of HUD, a senator questioned my compassion for the disadvantaged. I told him, I'm one of them. You do not seem to understand who I am. I am not just Patricia Harris. I am a black woman, the daughter of a dining car waiter. I am a black woman who could not buy a house 8 years ago in parts of the District of Columbia. If my life has any meaning at all, it is that those who start out as outcasts may end up being a part of the system.
Ron Brown here, at your service. I am the first African American to hold the position of Secretary of Commerce. I was appointed by President Bill Clinton during his first term, January 1993 to April 1996. My untimely death in an international plane crash didn't allow me to finish my work as Secretary of Commerce. But prior to that appointment, I gave service by working for the National Urban League, was elected chair of the Democratic National Committee, and ran a successful Democratic National Convention in 1992. The outcome, President Bill Clinton. I was born in Washington, D.C., April 1st, 1941, and raised in New York. I was born to serve. And oh, what a life I live.
My work has taken me all over the world, giving me the opportunity to help people who live differently from us, but who are very much the same. From Chicago to Minnesota, and from Afghanistan to the Ukraine. From birth to my college days, right up to today, I have traveled extensively to bring knowledge and equality to all people. Currently, I'm a consultant to the African Development Foundation on Somalia. However, I have previously served in 7 different presidential appointments with a broad spectrum of responsibility. I made a commitment to serve my country through government services, and my greatest responsibilities have included my work as the Undersecretary for the Smithsonian Institution, the Assistant Administrator for Africa at the USAID, and the Undersecretary of State for African Affairs. I have also found time to volunteer for important projects, such as the Bush-Clinton-Katrina Fund, where I represented the Republicans and worked side by side with former Secretary of Labor Alexis Herman, my dear friend, who is a Democrat. We worked together successfully on that project for our respective parties. I also volunteered for the International Republican Institute, the IRI, traveling the world, monitoring democracy of elections internationally. Wow, just looking back on it, I am proud to have been able to contribute my services. But wait a minute, I'm not done yet. There's still a little more room on my passport. I think I'm on number 19. You'll never know where Constance Berry Newman will turn up.
That Connie Newman is so modest. Did she mention that she was recently voted one of the 20 greatest all-time feds of this century by Government Executive Magazine? With a resume like that, no wonder she and Ralph Bunche were the only two blacks to receive that recognition. That puts her right in company with Teddy Roosevelt. I am so honored to call her friend and mentor. It is upon her shoulders I stand along with my mentor, Dr. Dorothy Irene Height, as the Honorable Alexis Herman. I must say, political ambition was not an unfamiliar aspiration in my household. My father, Alex Herman, for whom I was named, sued the Democratic Party in an effort to allow blacks to vote. And later, he became the state's first black warsman. So I think that just set the tone for me. Although my father sued the Democratic Party, ironically, I became intimately involved with the DNC and worked alongside Ron Brown organizing the 1992 Democratic National Convention. Bill Clinton was elected the 42nd president and named me Director of Office of Public Liaison. During that time, I was described as tactful, unflappable, with savvy interpersonal skills, and the queen of schmooze. Probably because of all the heavy negotiations and reorganizing I was faced with. It was in President Clinton's second term in 1997 that I was sworn in as America's 23rd Secretary of Labor and the first African American ever to lead the United States Department of Labor.
Being a classical pianist, an only child born with a really different name. I am Condoleezza Rice, an unlikely candidate to succeed the first black Secretary of State, General Colin Powell. I was born on November 14, 1954 in Birmingham, Alabama. Although I grew up surrounded by racism in a segregated South, I didn't let that hold me back. I went on to become the first woman and first African American to serve as provost of Stanford University. In 2001, I was appointed National Security Advisor by President George Bush, becoming the first black woman and second woman to hold that post. And then I went on to become the first black woman to serve as U.S. Secretary of State, January 2005 to 2009, following in some pretty big footsteps. After all, General Powell had an illustrious career in the Army and was appointed as Chairman of Joint Chief of Staff, the highest military position in the Department of Defense, before being appointed as Secretary of State. His appointments came from two presidents. He was a great mentor.
You could have never convinced my high school classmates that I would end up in the White House. But if you had asked me, I knew I was headed for great things because great things are what my mother told me I could achieve. I am Min Yon Moore, and my career path has been so exciting. I want to make sure our young people today know with hard work, not just hard work, but good work ethics and consistency, you can have a great career. In 1988, I served as the Deputy Field Director for Jesse Jackson's presidential campaign. In 1989, I became the Organization's Development Director in both Clinton administration. And in 1992, I was named the Director of Political Affairs for President Bill Clinton and became the first African-American woman to serve as a White House Public Affairs Director in both Clinton administration. During my time in the Clinton administrations, I served as the principal political advisor to the President, Vice President, First Lady, and senior White House staffs. In 2000, I became the Chief Operating Officer for the Democratic National Committee. In 2002, I joined the Dewey Square Group, a top Democratic public affairs firm where I led in state and local affairs practices. In 2004, I helped run Democratic presidential candidate John Kerry's Minority Outreach Program. And I was also a top advisor to Hillary Clinton during her 2008 presidential campaign. So, all you have to do is envision, believe, create.
That's a great point my homegirl from Chicago just made. Dream and believe, and then work to make it happen. That's exactly what we have done during the presidential campaigns. And I certainly plan to stick around during the second term for the bold agenda President Obama has planned for the months ahead. Oh yes, we have learned a lot during the past 4 years, and we have the gray hair to show for it. On the president, it's kind of funny. On me, Valerie Jarrett, not so much. I do have the distinct pleasure of being both friend and senior advisor to President Obama. I have been on this journey with the President and Mrs. Obama since I hired Michelle Robinson in a position in Mayor Richard Daley's office while I was Deputy Chief of Staff. It was during the time I met her fiance, Barack Obama, and we all had been together as friends and in business from that point on. So now, I'm in the position of White House Senior Advisor to the President and Assistant to the President for Intergovernmental Affairs and Public Engagement. I'm also honored to chair both White House Council of Women and Girls and White House Office of Olympic, Paralympic, and Youth Sport. But most importantly, I am a friend and confidant to the Obamas, and this journey has been a great one.
Mother, mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Yeah. Picket lines and picket signs. Don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see what's going on, what's going on, yeah, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on.
Elected Mayor of Gary, Indiana in 1968, I am Richard D. Catcher, the first African-American mayor of any U.S. metropolitan city and the first African-American mayor of Indiana. I remained in office for 5 terms until 1987. I stood side by side delivering speeches with the great civil rights leaders, Dr. King and Reverend Jesse Jackson. I was known for developing innovative approaches to urban problems and for being a national and international spokesman for minorities for the poor in American cities. My proudest moment was hosting the 1972 National Black Political Convention right here in Gary, Indiana. There were some great mayors out there. Carl Stokes was elected mayor of Cleveland, Ohio, just a few days after me. And boy, we were on a mission to clean up our cities.
I love Atlanta, Georgia. My father, Maynard Holbrook Jackson Sr., moved our family to Atlanta in 1938. I came from the house, Morehouse. You can tell I'm from Morehouse, but you can't say much else. I graduated at the age of 18 through an early entrance program. I had to work hard and got involved in politics while working on my law degree. It was a great privilege to be the first black mayor of a major southern city, and I served 3 terms, 2 consecutively from 1973 and a 3rd in 1990 after Andrew Young, another great mayor. We made lots of progress on improving race relations in Atlanta, developing economic empowerment for minorities, implementing huge public works projects like the upgrade of the now entitled Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, one of the busiest hubs in the country. As mayor, the people who vote for you expect you to work for them. And that's what Maynard Jackson Jr. is all about, the people of Atlanta.
The same week Maynard Jackson became the mayor of Atlanta, I was elected the first black mayor of Detroit. I'm Coleman Young, and served the city of Detroit for 20 years, winning elections in 1977, 1981, 1984, and 1989. It was largely the black vote that kept me in office. Yes, the power of the vote is strong. Do realize that your vote created opportunities for so many black people to become mayors of most of the major cities of this country. Brothers like me who have struggled to serve the people of their city, like Harold Washington, Chicago, Illinois, Kurt Smoke, Baltimore, Maryland, Harvey Gantt, Charlotte, North Carolina, Wilson Good, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Wellington Webb, Denver, Colorado, Ron Kirk, Dallas, Texas, Tom Bradley, Los Angeles, California, and David Dinkins, the first and only black mayor of New York. And let's not forget our first black governor since Reconstruction, Douglass Wilder. It was quite a journey for me. Right after graduating from high school, I worked for Ford Motor Company. I was blacklisted quickly for my involvement in labor and civil rights activism. I never hesitated to speak the truth as I saw it, and sometimes that didn't sit well with others. But I decided early that you cannot look forward and backward at the same time. That's how all these great men became great civil servants, by looking forward. And they just keep coming onward and upward. So exercise your right to vote. Support your local and federal government. And don't forget about all those African American men and women who have fought and continue to fight for your rights.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my
made a way for the Negro to be a real citizen of the United States. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments are our key to freedom. We must keep moving forward. We must let freedom ring.
I pray that our struggle was not in vain, and the right to vote is not wasted, but exercised in every way possible. Women, unite and help our young people. Teach them how to organize and to continue on in the movement. One day, we may even see the election of a black president.
I am Barack Obama, 44th President of the United States. Thanks for voting. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Billy Ingram, Layla Ali.
Stefano De Leo, Michael Buffer.
Kanab Bryant, Henry Boggs Brown.
Justice Almond Price, Michelle Obama. DeShayla as Dr. Julianne Mavo.
Angelo Jackson as Tyler Perry.
Raina Montague as Mary McCott Bethune.
Xavier Davis, Arthur Ashe.
Brianna R. as Ruby Bridges. Kayla Mason as Bessie Coleman. Isabella DeLeo as Susan B. Anthony. Najee Ferguson, known as Chuck Brown.
Elijah Ragland, Nat Love, a.k.a. Deadwood Dick.
Amuzu Laferme as Muhammad Ali.
Michael Scott, Benjamin Banneker.
Sydney Shepard, Dr. Dorothy Irene Height. Happy birthday, Dorothy Height.
Maya Spencer as Serena Williams.
Maya Angelou as Skylar Thomas.
Amari Dixon as Ida B. Wells Barnett.
Darian Mallory as Ben Ali. Marjay Lyons as Malcolm X.
Amira Malik as Rosa Parks. Naomi Ragland as Madam C.J. Walker.
No need asking where I've been, just ask me where I'm going. 'Cause I won't be ashamed to tell you I've lived my life knowing all the roads ahead of me are filled with peace and love. Every step so heavily, falling bound right up. Oh, miracles and dreams realized.
Joseph Rainer, The Struggle to Serve.
Jeremiah Sullivan as Adam Clayton Powell Jr.
Camera Long as C. Dolores Tucker.
Taylor Wiggins as Barbara Charlene Jordan.
Ty Goodall, Eleanor Holmes Norton.
Karen Mosley Braun, Justice Wright.
Raven Bias as the mighty Maxine Waters.
Martika Flowers as Barbara Lee.
Kayla Bias as Aretha Franklin and Patricia Harris.
Kobe Williams as Ron Brown.
Tyler Tillman as Constance Berry Newman. Brandon Carroll as the Honorable Alexis Herman.
Callista Meta, Condoleezza Rice.
Kiana Wiggins, Min Yon Moore.
Mackenzie Porter, Valerie Jarrett.
Trey Falk as Marvin Gaye. Chris Donaldson, Richard Dick Hatcher.
Juan Lobos, Maynard Jackson.
Rajon Rankins, Coleman Young.
Sierra Holloway and Ella Baker.
Imani Haskell as Barack Obama.
Taylor Ross Woodrow McKnight, also known as Woody, as Frederick Douglass. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the WPAS Children of the Gospel Choir.